All right, people. So we're back again, and last couple of videos we were trying to make this Claro consent dialog work. We did that. It now works. And now we need to set up Google Analytics. Okay. And I've never done this before. I dealt with other analytics engines, and I kind of imagine how it all goes. But I think we should start with a bit of documentation reading and maybe find some guides. Um, Maybe I'll let Cursor do the initial search, the initial investigation. Maybe he can route us, link us to some documentation or some articles, and in chat. Or should I past chats? Is this? Oh, okay. This is the wrong application. One thing I would like to ask from Cursor is that while he still persists the context, like I would like it to put everything Claro related that we've done so far into Cursor rules and into README documentation, so that we can refer to this documentation in case he feels lost, in case we feel lost. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So Claro is now working. I'm not sure if we should tell him that, well, actually, the issue was with the debug true or testing true flag. Probably we should. In the config, after setting it to false, everything just worked as described in the official docs. Now let's put everything in Cursor rules and README. So we'll let it do that. And in the meantime, no meantime. Let's just wait it to finish, and then we'll ask it to do some initial investigation. Where do we go from there? So again, just in the interest of time, probably I would do this better personally, but then it would take more time. And a ratio that I kind of figured out for myself while dealing with this Cursor thing is that 2 out of 5 features, or maybe 1 out of 3 features, it gets confused, as with Claro, right? Maybe for the features where there's not enough of materials on the internet, right? So the LLM was not educated enough on the topic, because there is a big difference between, let's say, asking questions about React and about some other web framework less popular, right? So less popular framework would have less exposure, and the LLM doesn't know them as much as good as, let's say, React. This is the same for all of the other not so popular, quote unquote, libraries, right? Which don't have a lot of articles and a lot of materials on the net, on the Stack Overflow and so on. So it can hallucinate heavily about these libraries and about these frameworks. So I think Google Analytics should be fairly good, fairly well documented. So we can just say Let's see what it's changed. So we can just ask it for guidance. Okay, Next.js and Google auth, Claro, GDPR compliant, so implementation details, configuration CDN, okay. So it basically summarizes what has been done, what are the key classes, and what do they do. And cursor rules file is mostly for the cursor itself. You can it's human readable still, right? You can read it as you read, let's say, README file, and it's all fine. Critical set. Okay, yeah, you see, that's why I think it's important to communicate with cursor as you would communicate with a human being, right? If I kind of omitted this little moment that actually testing false was breaking the whole flow, right? It wouldn't have put this into the cursor rules, and then it probably would stumble over this rock again and again and again, right? If I don't explicitly tell it, like this was the mistake, and go put it in the cursor rules, it would do the same mistake again. So, yeah, we'll just take this extra time, extra couple of seconds to just explicitly tell them that, hey, this was the bug, go summarize it. And README, again, you can see that those two files are kind of similar. And it, why do you have to put this all the time? What a dummy. And sometimes you see I've already removed these things, right? Some time ago, maybe a couple of videos ago. I don't want my README file to contain any keys, right? It's not a big security consideration because he does not know the values, right? Google client ID, Google secret. I just don't want these, even the keys, to hang around. But then, on the other hand, this is not public information. It's not that this repo is public. So, I don't know. Maybe I can leave it for now. It's all fine. And then it removed the schema for whatever reason. Why did he have to remove the schema? Leave the DB schema as is. It's still relevant in the README file. So that's first, right? So usually, right, what I noticed again about this cursor thing is that whenever you use this auto agent, right, it distributes your requests amongst all of these LLMs, right, that it has access to. And they're not the same, okay? If you try, they have their own quirks and specificities. So if you try, let's say, Claude for Sonnet, it's like, meh. But if you try, let's say, O3, then it's a much more, how would I say, thorough model, so to speak. It takes longer to give response, and you can see how the gears basically grind, right? It thinks to itself, right? And you can see the debug print, something like, okay, now user asked me this, and now I have to go and look up the documentation, and then it looks up the documentation. And then it says, okay, now I looked up the documentation. This is what I have. And there's like a little summary for itself, right? And so you can see the reasoning steps that this model makes. And obviously they have their pros and cons. Yeah, you see it says complex problems, difficult bugs, deep reasoning, slow. It has a fairly large context window, 200 tokens. Oh, but they all have 200,000 tokens. It's all good. But anyhow, if you're solving like difficult problems, probably you have to stick with these models. You see where they have brain icon alongside, like beside them. The only reason I don't use them by default is that the number of tokens you can use per month for the paid subscription is limited, and if you go beyond the threshold, you have to pay extra, which I don't want to. So yeah, since this Saas project does not yield any profit still, or until it does, I just want to keep the footprint, our expense footprint, as low as possible, and then we can see if it makes sense to pay extra for this model usage. Okay, that's all good. What else? Video uploads, responsive design. Responsive design. I like how he kind of mixes, some purely technical information, like what it does, right, and how it does it, with like responsive design. This is for me to read, right, if I forget something, or maybe for other contributors if they are to join this project later on, and then you have to say responsive design. Like, this is kind of goes without saying, right? But okay. Okay, whatever. I don't read this README file all that often anyhow. This is more for decorative purposes. This one is okay. This one is purely for cursor though. I don't open it up and I don't read it basically at all. Okay, we can also do we have any unsafe changes? No, we don't. We can also commit this cursor rules and README. I will not push this though, because this will not be reflected in the production application. These are like static files that for humans and AI models to read. So I don't want to just assemble yet another yet another instance and Docker image and then push it to Kubernetes to deploy. But in the meantime, we can just do this voice over AI com. Okay, and you can see that now in the production application we have our consent dialog, and let's say I give my consent. I'm not John Brown, but this is the account I use, and you can see that. Can we see the cookies? Okay, here we go. Claro, right? Maybe we should remove this debug print as well. User need not know about this, and especially about the configuration, right? This is not how production applications are are deployed. You don't need to know all of this stuff, and this information can be used against you actually if you're not careful with this. So, and that change we probably can push. So first thing, let's go back. Claro config loaded. Let's just see where this is coming from. Okay, we can remove this, and Claro config is loading. Again, don't need that. Claro config loaded. Okay, this one we already. Any other logs? Probably we don't need this as well. I know that this works. But okay, let's leave it. Let's leave it. It's not a big deal. So let's save it and let's say remove debug print. Commit. Okay, I think I forgot to save something. And we commit and push. So again, now this will get pushed to GitLab, and pipeline will build a Docker image and then push it to basically deploy this to our Kubernetes cluster. Cool, cool. Maybe I can also make a video about how did I set up the Kubernetes cluster and how did I set up GitLab pipeline so that everything works automatically. I don't have to push anything manually, but maybe not just right now. Anyways, let's open a new chat. Let's start from a clean slate. We'll have this config. I'll attach it to the cursor chat. And let's begin with our Google Analytics, right? I'll describe the problem. Now, let's implement Google Analytics for this application. Describe the steps we have to take. And create a plan. And of course, it has some connection issues. Pretty often though. Okay, let's now give it a moment. And maybe while it tries to reason about this, wait, what? No. Please don't do any implementation. First, don't implement anything yet. Man, it's so eager to make changes. Go straight to Kubernetes deployment. Man, like, yeah, sure, I can do that. Let's start with messing up with your deployment YAMLs. Revert this. Yeah. Okay, so what does he propose? Okay, so based on my analysis, here's the detailed plan for implementing Google Analytics with GDPR compliant, blah, blah, blah. So current state, right? We already have Claro set up and it works fine. Google Analytics services defined in Claro but not implemented. That's true. Environment variable structure is established in Kubernetes deployment. That is also true. We already use some Google API, namely text-to-speech and speech-to-text APIs. So we have all of the configuration enabled. The only thing we have to do, as I think, is to go to Google Console and enable some additional services, let's say Google Analytics and such. If that is the case, if we don't have to use yet another Google account, I hope we don't have to, because setting this up is a little bit tedious. Then we'll just have to go to the dashboard and include, like, click a button or check a checkbox. And then coming back to the response, Next.js app router with proper scripts loading order. I don't know what the hell does he mean, but okay. It's good that we have it, or it's good that he thinks that we have it. Key user flows to track authentication, upload, initiation. Oh, okay. So basically this is the core events he wants to track based on the code base analysis. The main conversion funnel is authentication, upload, initiation, content creation, yes, file upload, processing, completion. Yeah, so I think we'll start with just the core events, right? Landed on the first page, or maybe let's separate it like this. So navigation events and button and click events or action events, right? So we can compare those two, and then maybe something else. But let's start with the bare bones events, right? Navigation and button clicks, because that usually gives you a full image of what do we have to do. I mean, what the users do with your web application. So usually you would see something like this: landed on the landing page, right? And then clicked authorization button, and then let's say they either authorized or not authorized. So maybe you can see after you get redirected to the landing page again, you can include like authorized flag, right? So you can already see how funnel forms. First, an unauthorized user lands on the landing page, and then they either authorize or not. And then afterwards, they either go to upload page or not. And then afterwards, they either upload a video or not. And you can see the funnel getting narrower and narrower until I don't know how many percent are going to make it to the results screen. I don't know, 20, 30, 15, 10%, 5%. Yeah, I don't know what should be the number for our web application. We'll see. That is going to be a really interesting exercise, probably. Anyway, coming back to the plan, right? So, implementation plan. Phase 1, foundation step, establish Google Analytics infrastructure with a consent manager. So, step environment configuration, Google Analytics ID to Kubernetes secret. So, Google Analytics ID. So, how this works, right? How does this work? We need this both in Kubernetes secrets, because basically these are going to be our environment variables. Google Analytics ID. And probably will have to... I'm just wondering, do we need access to these when developing locally? Probably yes, but there is a great lag between sending an event and then consuming it in Google Analytics dashboard. Probably even hours. I think last time I checked the documentation was like from 4 to 18 or 24 hours even. So this comes with a lag. Even if we implement this, and even if the events are fired, we wouldn't know until tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Okay. So it says we need Google Analytics ID, add environment variables to local development setup. Okay. Update CI/CD variables, pipelines to include the new secret. Yep. And so basically, I'll decipher this for you, right? First thing would be the environmental variables, right? I have a file that I refer over here, right? Maybe I can show you. Environment local, right? Which contains all of the credentials that the application needs. All of the Google Analytics tokens, not only Google Analytics, but everything that's Google related. All of the databases, passwords, and domains, and all that stuff. And I would have to add these Google Analytics IDs and tokens to this local file. That's first, so they're available for my local development. And then I would have to attach all of these secrets to Kubernetes secrets, right, as shown in the development, because when we assemble the Docker image and it spins inside of the Kubernetes cluster, this Docker container should have access to the same values as local development instance. Otherwise, this Docker container, this Docker image wouldn't be able to connect to Google Analytics. So we have to match those two environments, right? Production environment and local environment. And then update CI/CD pipelines to include the new secret. Again, that is true because this is the deployment, right? And it needs to get these values from somewhere. So we have to update CI/CD variables so that the pipeline knows where to get these values from. Okay, that's cool. And then analytics core implementation. So, and then create Google Analytics components. Okay, that's cool. Create utils, analytics utils, functionality, user analytics custom hook for analytics operations, consent integration enhancement. Okay. Update public config with enhanced Google Analytics configuration, add consent-aware analytics initialization callback, implement proper consent withdrawal handling. Okay, basically this is a sound plan. This is probably something similar to what I would do manually. I mean, it makes sense, right? First, set up the environment where your credentials are available to your applications, both locally and in production. Cool. Then you create some helper classes and util classes and components where all of the logic sits. That's cool. And then you bind it to the consent callbacks, right? Because we have to initialize these new components, which deal with Google Analytics when user clicks consent button, right? I allow you to collect my data, and I allow you to collect my events, basically, when I interact with your website. And this would be kind of a entry point for everything analytics related, right? The config that we made over here, we would initialize Google Analytics. Cool. Implement conditional blah, 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 blah. And then event tracking, right? Track all key user interactions and conversion events, authentication events. Okay, and then he describes basically what events make sense to add. Also some advanced analytics features, implement business intelligence and optimization tracking, enhance e-commerce tracking, conversion funnels, implement custom dimensions for user segments, track user lifetime value patterns, monitor abandonment points. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, the funnels, right? Why do we need this analytics in the first place? Not for a fancy dashboard. I just want to know at which point the user abandoned the website, right? And how do I optimize this stuff? Maybe we can employ A/B testing later on, but not until we implement analytics and not until we form some kind of funnel. So we'll have to advertise the website. We'll have to set up I'm not sure if I should make it paid or free from the very beginning. Probably I should make it paid from the very beginning. That's what the conventional wisdom says. Regarding starting your business, right? It should be paid from the very beginning. But anyways, that comes later, because if I decide to charge money for the service usage, then I have to probably set up a legal entity. I cannot just attach a payment methods to my personal credit card. That's not an option. So probably I need a legal entity, and then a bank account should be attached to this legal entity. At least I imagine it so. So this is going to be a big feature of in itself. And probably I'm going to do this after we set up analytics. So after we do all of this stuff, I will have to see like what are the options for me being an expat in Thailand. How do I set up a legal entity somewhere in Thailand or maybe outside of Thailand, some international business. This is going to be an interesting one, so stick around. And maybe I can then release a separate video of how people in a similar situation can go about it, right? If they decide to open up a business. Anyhow, I just want to ask it some questions. So technical implementation, blah, 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 blah. Key integration points, layout, upload page, result, okay. So regarding point number 1, I just want to ask it, like, I already have Google Console account set up, and the application use some of the Google APIs. So the question is, do I need to enable Google Analytics explicitly, or it's available by default? And again, connection failed. Happens pretty often. Fix this, guys. Fix this. Okay, so it's not automatically available. Go to your existing Google Cloud Console project, navigate to APIs and services, search for Google Analytics and enable these APIs. Google Analytics Reporting API for data expert if needed. Data recommended. Okay, so basically I have to go to my Google Console account and enable all of this stuff. So probably I will do this outside of the video because I have to log on to my personal personal account, which I don't want to flash really. And yeah, I don't think it's like particularly interesting, and maybe I can summarize this for you guys next time I record a video. Anyhow, I think we'll continue in the next video. And yeah, thanks for your time, and see you in the next one. Bye.